ocean roads to the land of the Hopi.
And welcome to another edition of Not Your Ordinary Sports Show. I'm Robert Henslee, joined again by Eric Winston. We're pleased to have you along for the ride, and hope you can join us as well via Twitter, on our Twitter feed brought to you by Verizon. We want to get your questions in. Twitter.com, I should say, @ThebasTV on Twitter.com. @ThebasTV is the way to send your questions in for Eric, myself, and our panel of guests today. Let me start by introducing them. Ladies going first.
Thank you.
Shelby Hodge, noted society columnist. I trust you're no relation to former Steelers running back Merrill Hodge.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No one told me about the game. Oh, thanks.
Yes. Shelby Hodge, who helped found CultureMap.com here in Houston and still covers news and entertainment in Houston like nobody else.
And the social scene. A lot of parties going on.
How did CultureMap.com come together? We're going to find out more about you as the show goes on, but the Cliff Notes version.
The Cliff Notes. Culture Map began as initially a restaurant guide, but there were people involved that had a vision of what media could be today, as opposed to a newspaper, an online daily digital magazine. And they just took that idea and went with it. And we're rocking and rolling. We're having a great time. 2 years down the road.
Absolutely love it. A new way to cover the city. Shelby Hodge with us. She's going to be with us through the game. And we are also joined now by Rod Ryan, host of the world-famous Rod Ryan on 94.5 The Buzz. You're a little slimmer, but I hope you're not related to Rex and Rob Ryan, the defensive coordinators and sons of Buddy.
I get the Rob Ryan thing all the time. They got to do a little bit better job of saying the B or D here. I get the Rob Ryan thing constantly, so it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but no relation whatsoever.
Yeah, you're a huge football fan. You've been in Houston, what, 7 years now? So
yeah, 7 years. January will be 8 years, so I've been, with the Texans since I got here, and man, what a season we're having so far.
Yeah, off to a great start, 3-1. Were you surprised by the win over the Steelers, or did you expect it?
I picked them, if that means anything. I mean, I did pick them, I swear.
The Steelers, or?
No, I picked you guys to win. Are you kidding me? No, I picked you guys to win. Everybody felt good. I mean, with the home game and with the home fans, behind it, I know you guys probably saw a ton of those terrible towels out there.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
But they're a huge team. I mean, everybody always talks about the Dallas Cowboys being this national team. People don't really give the Steelers the credit that they deserve, man. There's people that root for them all over the country.
Yep. Cowboys, Packers, Steelers really get nationwide following, and the New England Patriots as well. We don't have any of the big-name teams tonight, but we hope that's going to make our show more interesting for you today as we watch this game with you. The Colts and the Buccaneers. Eric, let's get your quick thoughts on this matchup. The Colts trying to avoid going 0-4 to start the season, and Curtis Painter making his first NFL start on Monday Night Football.
I'm hoping we're just going to get a good game here, to tell you the truth, because this game could go a lot of different ways. Curtis Painter looked bad during the preseason, and I think that was an understanding, and thus they brought in Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins, a gazillion-year vet of the NFL. They brought him in, and last week against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, boom, got a concussion. Curtis Painter comes in, has a horrible 3-and-out, two hops, two guys.
Wide open guys.
And then comes in and has an 80-yard drive for a touchdown to tie the game and almost win it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of Curtis Painter we're going to see tonight. If we're going to see the Curtis Painter that can manage the game, that can actually get the 15-yard out to Reggie Wayne, because he's the one that's been complaining that, hey, we should have Curtis Painter in here, not Kerry Collins. Reggie Wayne's leader of this team has been very outspoken about that. And I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of game he has. I think he probably knows the offense a little bit better than Kerry Collins. He's been a backup for a while, knows more of the checks. Don't expect the Colts offense to change much, though. They're going to stay with their running game. They got to have the running game. They can't have the ball in Curtis Painter's hands 45 times this game and expect to be victorious.
That's weird. The Colts are not a running team.
They
became one against the Steelers.
They did, and they ran the ball efficiently. They didn't have a big 42-yard run like Arian had, but they were getting 5 and 6 in 8 games. Joseph Adai, and they run the stretch zone pretty effectively. So if they can do that and they can keep Tampa out of that cover 2 a little bit, make them bring a safety down, that might be something that can open up some things down the field. And you talking about their defense, obviously Dwight Freeney, Penn's going to have a long day. The left tackle for the Bucs are going to have a long day with them. Of course, Mathis too, with Jeremy Trueblood on the right side. I think the big thing for the Buccaneers will be, can they can they on schedule? Meaning, can on first down they get 4 or 5 yards with a run? Can they go play action pass and then come back on third down, either run it or a short throw? Because when you play the Colts, the one thing you got to worry about are those two ends. You got to make sure that Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis don't win the game by themselves, because they almost did it last week against Pittsburgh. They almost had a sack fumble, they had a touchdown, and so they took control of that game when Pittsburgh was already ahead 10-0. That's going to be something. That's a task for every team. It's going to be a task on Monday night. Those guys play when the lights get big. Those guys play even better, and it's going to be a task for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to see if they can keep those guys at bay and if they can stay on schedule. There's nothing more than what Indianapolis wants you at 3rd and 8, where those guys can come after the quarterback. Boom, sack fumble. Now the ball's going the other way. Curtis Painter has a short field. That's the kind of chess match you're going to see. I don't think we're going to see a high-scoring affair tonight. I really don't. I think 17 points probably wins it, and probably wins it pretty easily. I'd be surprised if someone scores more than 17, it's probably going to be the Buccaneers. But like I said, if the Colts can stay away from the turnovers, if they can stay on schedule, they can run the ball a little bit. Curtis Painter can make some of these throws. I think they'll stay in this game, because I don't think the Colts defense will be as bad, because the Buccaneers offense has been pretty inept. Even though Josh Freeman's a very good quarterback, I think he has that sense of winning the game at the end. They're not putting up a lot of numbers. They're not putting up a lot of passing yards. So they're going to run it with LeGarrette Blount. They'll probably play action pass a little bit. But don't expect a high-scoring affair here tonight.
The Bucs, after seeing the Colts with Curtis Painter last week and how they went to the run, have to be stacking the line to stop the run. I mean, Curtis Painter's going to have to make some plays.
Well, you're going to have to make some throws, and I think it's those, these kind of throws that you're seeing on ESPN right now. It's those 15-yard outs. It's the slants. The thing you can't do is say, okay, time at snap after snap, consecutive snap, asking him to come up to the line and say, okay, I'm going to hit my 3rd receiver on this one. I'm going to hit the 4th check down out of the running back out. You have to give him some simple throws, get him into the rhythm of the game. You got to remember, this is like his first start ever. This is his first start that he's ever going to have. So it's a little different than just coming into the game. He's not going to know exactly what to expect from Tampa Bay.
How big does Monday night play into that, though? I mean, are you surprised that they're starting him on a Monday with the whole nation watching?
They don't have a choice, and that's the thing.
They had to start him this game?
They have to start. Kerry Collins is out this game. Curtis Painter's up. Dan Orlovsky is the backup for him, and he just came back. So they have no choice in the matter. So the thing when you're starting a new quarterback, this is his first start ever, what's important is get him off to a fast start, get him off to a start where he feels comfortable, then start working him into some of the deeper throws down the field. I wouldn't be concerned about going deep right away in the game. Maybe they'll do that just to let him throw it down the field, but I would like to see them hit Reggie Wayne on a slant, hit a 5-yard out, get him in there, run it a couple times, maybe get a play-action pass, something that he feels comfortable with, that he doesn't have to go out there and say, you know what, I don't have to win this by myself. I got some other guys to go out there and help me.
But every game is game day. There's a little bit more on Monday night, isn't there? I mean, for this quarterback, I mean, he knows that he's got the stage. Everyone else in the NFL is watching this game. So there's got to be a little bit extra as far as the nerves and some butterflies for him.
Of course, and that's the thing is you add on top of the fact that he's kind of become a punchline in the league a little bit, between guys and between the fans and between everyone else. And not only is he going to he's got to win over his teammates, but he's also kind of got to win over everyone else. I mean, there's a lot of people that think he doesn't even deserve to be a quarterback anywhere in this league. So
why didn't they go with him right away then? Why didn't they go? If he's been in the system and
because the preseason was that bad. Remember, they didn't go out and get Kerry Collins right away.
Right.
It took into week 5 of the preseason, after game 3 or something like that, or right before game 3, for them to sign Kerry Collins. So they were prepared to let Painter win it, but when he looked like it didn't look like he was going to be a starting quarterback yet, they had to go do something else. And right now they're kind of got their backs against the wall, and Painter, but you see this time and time again. How many quarterbacks have they said he can't play in this league? He can't play in this league. He can't play in this league. You can't play defensive end in this league. And then all of a sudden they come out and throw big numbers. I'm not saying Painter's going to be one of those guys, but let's not act like it hasn't happened before either. I mean, there's been scouts have been wrong many times before. There's a lot of guys that don't look good in practice, and then all of a sudden you put them in front of the lights, and then they turn it on, and you're like, who's this guy? You know what? You never know if Painter's going to be one of those guys.
Josh Freeman was part of the Cinderella run last year for the Bucs, a team that nobody expected to do anything, and he had a fantastic year. This year, while they're 2-1, Josh Freeman has been turning the ball over, has not been quite as reliable as last year. Is there a flaw there, or are teams catching up with it?
Both, and the flaw is probably with the coaching. Because what happens with a rookie quarterback is they go in, they said, okay, we're not going to give him too much. We're going to say, hand the ball off, and then after that, we might let him throw a slant. And at the end of the game, when it's tight, maybe he can do something to win a game. Well, Josh Freeman showed that he can do that. Josh Freeman said that in a 17-17 game, I can get that team down the field. I'll scramble, I'll shed a couple blocks, and I'm going to make a throw. And he did that effectively last year. So when the offensive coaches come in and say, look how great this guy is. Look, this guy can do this. He can do this all game now. Now all of a sudden his attempts are going up. Now he's throwing it 40 times a game, 35 times a game instead of 25 times, instead of 22 times. Now they're saying, hey, you know, instead of checking it down right here, force that ball down the middle of the field here and you can hit that guy in the seam. Now all of a sudden he's taking chances. He's understanding quite where that safety's coming across the middle, where it's all at. Now it's coming a little faster to him and the whole playbook's on his shoulders. They've got to dumb it down, much like they had to do with Flacco in the second year where they tried to put everything on it. And I think much like what's going on with Sanchez a little bit in New York. They're trying to give them too much, and they're becoming a team they're not. Tampa Bay needs to stay with the run against the Colts, needs to pound it, and then maybe hit a play-action pass deep. But that's, if you start asking him to do too much, I think you're going to see some of that stuff.
We'll see how much the Colts miss Gary Brackett, who was placed on injured reserve this week as well. We're glad to have you along for Not Your Ordinary Sports Show. John McClain's going to be joining us momentarily, the longtime NFL beat writer for the first Houston Oilers and now the Houston Texans. John will be along coming up in a little bit here in the first quarter as the Colts get the ball and take the field. Look, I just got to say right now, Curtis Painter needs to cut the hair. He just looks like...
what do you think, Shelby?
The hair's rock and roll.
What do you think, Shelby?
I think it's sort of gross, actually. I don't like watching that hair come out of those helmets.
Now, is it just him, or is it, if you're going to go long, you better go all the way long, like Clay Matthews long, Brooks Reed long, or Troy Palmer?
Clean-cut football player.
High and tight? High and tight?
But he looks sort of like a Viking when he doesn't have his helmet on. He's good looking with that hair.
Hey, win a few games and you want to grow out the hair and be a rock star, that's fine.
Exactly.
But Curtis Painter's just trying to prove that he can play in the NFL.
Yeah, you're not Tom Brady quite yet, right?
I mean, Joseph Adai rocks the long hair, right? He's been a star.
Every year, people talk to us about special teams players, punters, kickers, Steve Tasker, because Steve Tasker was great at kickoff coverage. And I look at those guys, and then I look at a guy that played every down on one side of the ball and was great consistently, and I cannot vote a special teams player over a position player unless there was not a position player worthy. But every year there are, so I can't vote for Steve Tasker.
Steve Tasker
or Ray
and
Guy.
Devin Hester are two different
Now, I
players.
will vote for Adam Vinatieri because he's won so many games.
Super Bowl.
In Super Bowls, the championship games, he'll be the only kicker I'll vote for. And Hester, I never really thought about it till he had this one, and he's going to have more. Sure. And he has been a game changer. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's returned one. He'd be the first one I'd have to give serious thought to. If he had never returned one, and they had put him in a position, where would it be, receiver?
Yeah.
Would he be a great receiver if that's all he did?
Well, they tried him at receiver.
I know, but
he
he's
wouldn't
still...
be. No, he's not great. He's not even really above
but
average.
If he'd have been doing it all along, like it to you, if he was not returning, he would just focus, because he's so fast and he's so quick, instinctive, explosive. You want him to have the ball 20 times a game. What would happen if he touched the ball 10 or 15 times a game? Reverses, quick screens.
Well, we tried him at tailback.
Slants.
We tried him at running back. He played some corner. We never could figure out, and I think that's on coaching, but I think also a little bit it's on him as well, how to really use him. And, that's everyone's fault when you have a talent like that. And he, to a certain extent, he kind of goes wasted a little bit. But he's just a special player. I don't think the NFL's ever seen a returner like him.
Oh, they haven't.
I mean, this guy is.
And he does both.
And there's not a lot of there's not a lot of great players that did both. There's players that did both, but one's a really good punt returner. He's okay at kicks, or he's a really good kick returner. He's all right at punts. It's hard to tell what he's better at. Is he better at kick returns, or is he better at punt returns? I think that's a legit question.
When Daniel Manning there, though, like last year, they didn't use him as much on kickoffs with Manning because Manning was good. He wasn't a threat to go the distance, but he averaged 25 points something. Sure. But to me, I would want Devin Hester touching the ball in double figures, and I don't care how you get him the ball.
That seems to me, it's almost like the coach's responsibility to find a way to use
but it's
that
also,
talent.
But you also have to understand, if he's out on the field only for those touches, obviously the defense is honing in on him. But you do get to a point where you're kind of chopping off your nose to spite your face, right? I mean, if you're force feeding this guy a ball, they can't assimilate himself into the offense, then you're kind of hurting your team in a way. I mean, I know he's explosive. I know he can get games, and you want to see him throw a fade or throw him a screen, somehow get him some balls in a useful way. But gosh, believe me, there's been people have tried. People have definitely tried. But it's just, it's been frustrating. I know they're probably frustrated sometimes with the lack of, ways they can get on the ball. But I mean, if he's on my team, he takes every return, whether it's a kick or a punt, and you know what? Tell you the truth, if he has to sit out an offense or a snap or two because of that return, I'm okay with that.
What'd y'all do when y'all beat them so bad here 3 years ago?
Chicago?
Yeah, did y'all
we ran
kick
the ball
it away
well.
from him?
Steve Slayton I think we kicked it away from him. Joe's a guy that doesn't usually kick it away from people. Joe Marciano, our special teams coach, he believes in coverage and believes you got to do it. But I'm pretty sure we kicked it away from him most of the time and hung it up there quite a bit to where, if you have only a 37-yard punt, you didn't have a chance for a return.
Just make sure Johnny Knox isn't waiting on the other side of the field to actually field the punt.
That was one of the most creative special teams plays I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like John in all your years covering the NFL?
No.
It's amazing somebody hasn't done that before because the guys running down on punt coverage
Did you see
are looking at the return man.
Against Green Bay, the special teams play where the Green Bay punts, Chicago knows they're going to punt away from Devin. Right. So they put Devin on this side of the hash mark. So the punter angles and kicks it left. Well, Devin keeps going this way.
Decoy. He's
and
going
saying,
like I'm
going to get the ball. Well, they have another player,
Johnny Knox.
And the whole team moved the same way.
And the whole team's following
all
Devin.
the blockers
so he's going
go
over here
to
to
Devin
actually
Hester's
catch
side.
the punt because if you're on punt coverage, you don't ever look up for the ball.
You're just looking at
I mean,
Devin.
you're assuming that the returner's actually going towards
and
the
it's
ball.
Devin Hester, right?
It's
So
Devin
you
Hester.
better be on point.
Yeah, so he's running towards the ball. Johnny Knox catches it on the sideline and goes all the way right
Touchdown.
there.
Fantastic.
And the refs, I'm telling you, the refs didn't know what to do until they threw a flag.
They threw a flag and
They
got a
couldn't
guy on
find
a
a hole.
phantom block.
They found a holding call. That was one of the worst calls ever. I heard they had to go over it with a fine-tooth comb before they found somebody they could say committed that penalty. Did you hear what Kubiak said? That the official told him on Jonathan Joseph block on return that they call Cushing, who was 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, because that's who Kubiak thought it was, and he said yes. Next thing I look up, and they're calling on Manning.
The block in
Now,
the back.
now Manning still shouldn't have done it, but according to Kubiak, it was called on Cushing.
Well, too, was it called before the recovery was made as well? It's a loose ball.
Manning went brain dead. He had the ball.
The guy that Cushing blocked, he had no chance of making that play anyways. He was
Manning
20
didn't
yards
either.
away
It
from
was the kicker.
Yeah.
You're right.
Why block the guy when Joseph's already? I mean, he's gone. I mean, there's no way you're going to.
But are you just reacting at that point? I mean, it's just
A little
weren't
bit
expecting
too.
that to happen,
And it looks so dumb. It's like, how can you hit him right in the back? When you're out there and you're going, because I've been on some punt coverage and been on some punt returns, and I've clipped a guy before, and on film it's like, God, that was an obvious clip. What the hell were you thinking? But when you do it, you swear that you got your head in front. I got my head in front. No, I wasn't. Then you look at the film and you're like, man, was that a bad block? I just blocked him right in the back. So it's a little different when you're out there, but you're right. In those situations, you have to be smart. You have to know who's chasing the guy. Because let's face it, unless it's a special kicker that's played some Division I soccer, they're not catching J. Joe. And even if
Rackers would have chased him, not caught him, but he would have given it a shot.
He would have given him a shot. Rackers couldn't catch him. Now, if he had stumbled with the ball and he had a full head of steam, he might have caught up with him. But I see good special teams players in those situations just run and put their body in front of them. If they have to run you over, they're going to at least trip up where then they can't catch a cornerback running with the ball. I think the frustration at that point had boiled over that, whether it was a legitimate call or not, we'd gotten so many calls. I mean, and that's the thing is, to me, it's a statistical anomaly. You can't, if you think about it, there's the same amount of penalties going on each side.
Right.
It just depends how many you want to call for each side.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, when they have 10 calls on us in one half and one for the other, it's kind of ridiculous. And I think at that point, everybody was so fed up with it.
Yours were big, too.
They're huge.
Was that when Kubiak, there was a point of the game, and I don't remember specifically when it was, Kubiak was screaming at the offense.
No, that was
at the
that,
offense.
that was
Was
that
that about penalties?
First
Was
possession.
No,
of
that
the
was first possession of
quarter.
the third quarter.
Okay.
And
I'd never seen him react like that before. I mean,
I have.
he's got a pretty
See,
calm demeanor.
you know, Eric, that's the thing. The fans think he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
They think he's passive and he doesn't chew y'all out. But the camera's not on him for the full game. And so all these fans are talking on the radio. Kubiak, after all these years, finally did something like that. You know, tell people how he jumps
Does that
shot
happen
big time.
on a fairly regular basis? Because we don't see it. You're exactly right.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't.
You don't see it.
To me, I've learned too that most coaches are calm during the games. Now I've had some opposite, but they're very animated at practice. They will get jump you, everything. Film sessions, they'll get after you. Games though, most of them calm down and they don't want to add anything more to the fire. And Kubiak's generally that way, and I think it's appropriate. I mean,
He's calling plays.
he's
so he
calling
has to.
plays. He's doing things. You know, and just if you're worried about a guy's, practice, you want guys to be going, and so sometimes you're a little hot and you try to get them going a little bit. But if you're, if you got to yell at a guy to get playing at an NFL, you probably got the wrong guy. So I don't think, he probably approaches it like that, and I think we all approach it that way too. But John's been at practices where he's laid into some guys.
What was he yelling at you guys
are
about?
Well, it was just more of it was just in the first half. I think from everybody that was in the stadium, if you were watching on TV, you could see the intensity. You could see the speed in which we were playing. You could see the push we were getting. And his main point of that was it didn't look the same. And I think, you look at that. We had 4 possessions in the first 3 quarters of that game. It was one of the most odd games I've ever been a part of. And we had
4 possessions through
3
into
quarters.
the third.
Yeah, by the end of the third quarter,
You
we had
only
4
had the ball
times the
4
ball.
times.
So I think it came from also a place saying, hey, we might only get the ball 2 more times this game. We better do something
Don't
with
waste
it.
your
Yeah, we're at
opportunity.
10-7 now, just became 10-10.
So is he noticing he thinks you guys have dropped it into a lower gear?
Yeah.
And not so much a lower gear that, hey, you guys came out of halftime, you sat on the bench for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
It's got to be the same. It's got to go out there no matter what.
You had 3
And-
plays and 2 yards.
3, yeah, and we didn't have a drive like that the whole first half. So not 3 and outs are going to happen, unfortunately. But at the same time, they've got to be because of some other reason. They can't be because of us not getting pushed up front, of us not playing fast, of us not getting out of the huddle. That's stuff that's got to be a constant. That has to be there all the time.
Bad timing for that 3 and out. Tell you what, we're going to talk more about the Texans and more about the Monday Night Football game, but it's time for another one-on-one segment. Before we go to that, I want to thank Shelby Hodge for joining us. She's got another engagement in town that she has to be
Always,
at.
always.
Shelby Hodge, check her out, culturemap.com. We look forward to reading your
Thanks.
coverage of the city and the arts and entertainment and high society as
Thanks
well.
very much.
Shelby
Thanks.
Hodge with
Appreciate
us. Let's go to our one-on-one segment. Eric's chance to get to know our guests a little bit better. Right now, he spends a few minutes with the Buzz's Rod Ryan from the Rod Ryan Morning Show. Let's start out with this video clip that shows some of Rod's best dance moves.
Oh, my God.
The things you do to stay awake at 6 a.m.
Dude, 30 million views later.
Is that what it got?
No,
Oh,
not even close.
jeez.
Not even close, thank God.
So, obviously for people that don't know, you do 94.5 The Buzz.
Yep.
At, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., obviously the big time for morning radio. What's that like? What's it like getting up? Obviously you've been doing this now for over a decade, right?
Yeah, about 10
And-
years doing mornings, and it's brutal. You never get used to getting up. I get up at 3:20 every day. The
You
biggest
get up at
question.
3:20 every day.
3:20 every day. About twice a week, I allow myself to hit snooze.
So you need to get home.
Eventually, yeah. When are we wrapping up here? This game's taking forever, man.
Run the ball. Run it.
Yeah, no, 3:20 every day. And, people say, like you said, 10 years, you don't get used to it. You do not, your body, you're not supposed to get up that early.
No.
You're just not. So, yeah, you deal with it. People ask, how are you so awake? How do you stay, alert? And, no coffee, no diet sodas.
5-hour energy.
No Red Bulls, no 5-hour energies, nothing. Nothing. I've totally weaned myself off of all of that. So it's just naturally just getting ready to go to work and just being ready for the day.
So what do you, what do you do at 3:20? You get up at 3:20, 3:30, eventually roll out of bed here. What does your morning consist of before you go on the air? What all has happened in your life before that happened?
All right, the girls on the show, Teresa, Jessica, they roll out of bed, ponytail, sweatpants like they're going to class,
Sure.
And they run to the station. All right, I've got to get up. I've got to turn on the news. I've got to make breakfast. I've got to drink my orange juice and take my vitamins. And I have to do all that stuff. I have to eat in the morning. I mean, I really do. I have to eat something first thing in the morning. These girls don't do any of that stuff. They just run in there and then boom. Not everybody's a coffee drinker, but I do have a bit of a routine in the morning that I have to kind of go through. So if I don't get up, if I don't shower and do all the same things, I have to do it in that way. Do I have to be there? I get to the station about 4:30. We go on about 10 to 6. So for me, it's really about getting in a routine and just being disciplined in doing it.
I can appreciate that. So when you get to the station at 4:30, now what kind of prep are you doing for the show?
I'm reading everything I can get my hands on. I'm going through emails.
So you're looking for material. You're looking for stuff that you can use now for these 4 hours.
There's plenty of things that happen the day before that you can use for the next day's show, but there's too many things that happen on the overnight. If I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock, there's too many things that are happening in the world that chances are we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. So you got to keep up on all that stuff. I mean, I can't watch Dancing with the Stars and I can't watch American Idol, the results, but you got to kind of know what's going on in case it comes up. It's never a plan that we're going to be discussing that stuff in the morning, but we know that those are the #1 shows on TV. People are watching them, so we have to mention them. So you got to kind of keep up on all that stuff.
Now, so you do the show. It's the most popular drive time morning show in all Houston.
Yes, it is.
And that's amazing in itself. But let's fast forward to 10 a.m. Now what are we doing? Now where are we going?
10 o'clock, hit my incredibly messy desk, and then I start getting just pummeled by salespeople, the promotions department. I work with Jessica on the show, and we start planning out what guests are going to be on. What products we need to get in. We do a lot of charity work on the show. So it seems to keep me there till about 2 o'clock every day. So it's a long day. I mean, 4:30 to 2. If I can get out of there at 1:30, that's a good day to get out of there.
Wow. So after the show, you're doing the behind the scenes work as well. It's not just, hey, go on from 6 to 10 and take off.
The biggest misconception is we unplug our headphones at 10 o'clock and I either take a nap or I go golf. That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. So now we go. Now, you take a nap at some point during the day, or are you always just working on about 5.5 hours?
That's it. No naps. It's such a terrible thing. When the alarm goes off at 3:20, it's awful. It's a terrible thing, right? To wake up twice in one day is a doubly awful thing. I mean, why would somebody want to go through that twice in one day? I cannot wake up from a nap. My problem is I've tried everything.
Interesting way to put it.
I've read every book. You sleep in 30-minute patterns. So you either sleep for 30 minutes or an hour and a half. You sleep up. If you sleep for an hour, you're hitting your deep sleep and you're disrupting this, that, and the other thing. Nothing works for me. Some people swear on power naps and 20-minute power naps. None of it works for me. I've got to wake up, and if I don't, it's just I'm groggy the rest of the day from that waking up the second time. So it's not worth it to me.
Okay, so we've kind of mapped out your day, but let's take it back a little bit. Now, when you were coming up, what did you want to do? Is this something that was always intrigued you? The radio, the DJing. What were your kind of aspirations? How did this all happen?
A failed rock star. I mean, it's easy.
Do you see that a lot with other people in your profession? I mean, is that like...
In some cases, yeah. I mean, for me, I played in bands all in high school. I was a musician. I played the drums, and I was in goofy bands, and we thought we were much better than we really were. And I had the mullet and the bad hair and everything. And at some point in the band, we traveled around a little bit. We played a lot in Canada because I'm from Buffalo. And we did interviews, went to radio stations, and I thought that was kind of cool. So at the time that I realized that our band kind of sucked and everybody else thought we were better, we all wanted to move. Well, 3 of the 4, me being the one that didn't. we're talking about moving to Los Angeles and going out and hanging out with Motley Crue and Rat and Poison and everybody. And I said,
You along with every other budding rock stars, right?
Correct. And I'm like, you know what? No, we're going to skip that. I'm going to quit. I went to school, and I said, well, if I can't be interviewed, I'm going to be the guy that interviews bands. That really was how the radio thing happened. You know, we visited a few radio stations. I thought it seemed cool. I'm like, the guys seemed like, okay, you know, you can still kind of dress like a bum and go to work. I'm like, that's for me.
That's what you wanted to do.
So that was basically how it came about.
So you started in Buffalo, and then you moved to New Orleans.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? How did
that was my first taste of the South, man. Let me tell you, that's like moving to Mars.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been to Buffalo, and New Orleans
totally
might
different.
As well be Mars.
But New Orleans is different than everywhere, though. I mean, I had friends that had, lease agreements to their apartment written on a bar napkin. I mean, it's loose. I mean, it's just everything.
That's what everyone says down there. That's the best way to put it. It's loose.
It's loose. Everything's done over a drink. You know, everybody's partying. Let the good times roll. It was fun. I mean, it was great. I went down there. I was 8 years, and it was wild.
Now, was it just a better situation? What made you want to come to Houston?
Well, for me, what I do, I mean, working at a radio station, I don't know how much this plays into what you guys do but there are bigger markets than others. You know, there's more opportunities. Even look at the opportunities that you would have here as opposed to being in Buffalo.
Sure.
There's just more opportunities, even for doing this show. Maybe there's better sponsors. There's better products that you could maybe endorse. So for me, being on the radio, you want to talk to as many people as possible. Well, we got 4 million people here. You know, there's 500,000 people in New Orleans. So it was a big jump. You know, this is the 4th biggest city in America. It's the 6th biggest radio market. So for me, it's all about talking to as many people as possible. So it was a big jump to come here. And, you know, it was scary. It was exciting. It was terrifying. It was everything all at the same time. But 8 years later, you know, we're doing real well.
Now, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? Where's Rod Ryan in 10 years? Where do you want to be? Where's this crazy train going to take you?
I really don't know. What I tell everybody is Eddie Vedder and the guys in Green Day and Soundgarden, they're getting older like me too, right? So it's not, you know what I mean? We're all kind of traveling like a pack of old wolves right now. So I don't know, does Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, what kind of we focus on at the Buzz, does that become classic rock and then the Led Zeppelin station becomes the oldies station?
Do you like the new stuff? Do you like some of the stuff that are coming out? Do you
love
listen
all the new
to
stuff. I mean, that's the great thing about the Buzz. You know, we do it's a great mix of like the stuff that's coming out right now. We got BuzzFest coming out. You got brand new bands. You got bands that have been around for a while. So we're able to do that. So I kind of still feel like I'm in the mix of what's happening. You know, radio stations, they say they're set up with all these different demographics, and you hear 18 to 34 and 25, 54. Those are all set up for advertisers, you know. I mean, people like what they like, and I think right now what we're doing is I'm still in that wheelhouse of, you know, the bands that we play and still staying relevant with the new stuff.
So you were talking earlier about charities. Talk about some of the things you're doing. You brought a shirt with you.
Yeah, I did bring a shirt.
What's this all about?
This is our 3rd year. This is our Boobs Rock shirt right here. This is our Boobs Rock shirt. It's the 3rd year we're doing this. All the money goes to MD Anderson. And, you know, I think everybody knows we have some of the finest facilities, if not the finest facility here in America.
100%.
I mean, anything dealing with medical here in Houston is just unbelievable. But when it comes to cancer research and people working on a cure, I feel like we have some of the most advanced doctors here in the world. So we give all the money to MD Anderson. We are nearing, in 3 years, over $100,000. We've teamed up with our partners, Bull Shirts, and they do all the printing. We take no money. They take no money. And we sell the shirts online. We've got a website set up, therodryanshowcares.com. And with this initiative, like I said, we're about $100,000 here. But, I mean, probably the biggest thing for me is since the Rod Ryan Show has been on, we are about $1.1 million to charities.
That's amazing.
Here in the area and the Gulf region, because a lot of that came when Hurricane Katrina hit. We donated a lot, or we had our listeners, they donated a lot of money. So, you know, I feel like we want to be involved in the society here. We want to be involved in the community. And I'm amazed at the people that live here in Houston, how giving and how willing they are to participate and give to charity.
That's fantastic. Real quick before I leave, favorite band of all time?
I guess I got to go with my first band, my first favorite band. I was a little kid. I was terrified of them. I loved them. It was Kiss. I mean, I saw them on Halloween one night, and I'm like, oh, my God, I was so afraid of them. But I was so intrigued, and I guess they've always kind of been my favorite band.
Now, when you're on the other side, last question, what was your best interview? What was your best call? What was your best guest that you've ever had, wherever you've ever been? I mean, what was something that sticks out in your mind that says, I'll never forget that?
I mean, the first time that I met Kiss, and it's one thing, Gene's kind of a goofball now. You watch his TV show, right? But to interview Kiss.
All right, everybody, this is Rod Ryan.
I mean, it sounds like a silly thing. It's the same guy, but
sure.
This is a guy that I grew up in 4th grade being deathly afraid of, and getting to talk to him with the makeup on and the shoes and towering over me. I guess that's probably one that'll always stick with me. But, we get to meet and get to talk to so many people. It really is a great gig, and you don't really take any of them for granted.
That's awesome. Rod Ryan, thanks for going on.
Thank you very much for having me.
We are broadcasting live here. Believe it or not, this is Houston, Texas. Doug, take a look around and see what's going on out here. It is the blizzard of '09 in Houston, Texas. Now, you may be asking yourself, why am I wearing shorts? It's because I'm an idiot, and I had no idea. They told me it was going to snow here. I had no idea that it really was going to snow. So we just wanted to give you a look at what's happening here. This is, in fact, is there any way of proving that we're in Houston, Texas? See all those people right there? They've never seen snow before. We're in Houston, Texas. So here we go. This is Blizzard '09, the Rod Ryan Show, reporting live from the Galleria, 94.5
The shift change is over. We lost a chair along the way, but we're glad to have you back here on Not Your Ordinary Sports Show. Real quick, right back to the game. The Colts taking the lead on this long catch and run from Pierre Garçon. The Colts are making a game out of this. To me, the Bucs look like the better team, but you hit big plays like this, and all of a sudden this is a good game.
They really are. What the Colts, a lot of people think of Peyton Manning passing the ball downfield. What a lot of people forget is that the Colts receivers can run after they catch the ball. Reggie Wayne has been a great runner after catch. Pierre Garçon is the big receiver. He almost is kind of built like a running back, so to speak. And they throw him a little slip screen here. They block real well. Pierre gets up the field and takes it for a touchdown. But, what you don't see on that play is you see Aqib Talib kind of shy away from that trap block from the tackle instead of going and meeting him and at least shortening the space that Garçon can run through, therefore giving him more space to work with and more space for the defenders to have to defend.
So is it up to the cornerback to break up that?
Well, you don't have to break it up, but you want to get there and shorten the space that he can maneuver. Therefore, giving him a shorter alley, making it an easier tackle. He didn't do that, and those are the little things that I think good defenses do, and Aqib Talib right there didn't do it.
He'd be better if he had a gun.
You would always be better, I think, if you had a gun on the football field, wouldn't you?
He obviously knows how to use his. So we're watching.
Not a great aim,
How did
right?
he get off,
or maybe
by the
it is
way?
a good aim.
How did he not get suspended for that?
Did you guys get amnesty for everybody that got in trouble during the lockout?
Obviously not everybody, but we got Cedric Benson and stuff are doing it. If a lot of guys, we looked at it like this. The NFL didn't want to talk about previous issues as far as the withholding of our benefits going back a year that they didn't pay out. They felt like that was a previous issue that was dealt with before the lockout, and they didn't want to go back on certain issues and relive it. Well, when we signed the CBA, we were going forward. Well, the NFL had come up and brought up the fact that they wanted to go back and relive certain other issues as far as player punishment, and that was something that we weren't interested in reliving either. So they couldn't have it both ways, and we felt pretty strongly about it.
It doesn't seem right that Cedric Benson beating up his former roommate in 5 a.m. is worse than Aqib Talib running down the street with a gun shooting at people.
It doesn't, and to tell you the truth, John, I don't know the whole situation about this, and this is something that I've kind of kept a close eye on, but I haven't quite understood the whole everything that goes along with it. And I'm sure this will be brought up at some point, probably after the season, on some conference calls, and it's when we have our semi-monthly or whatever conference calls, that when we end up having it, those questions will be brought up. And I know the executive committee of Drew Brees and those guys, Jeff Saturday, are probably have had some conversations about it. But I think it has to do with repeat offenders and non-repeat offenders and things that go along with that. But it's definitely something that I'm concerned about, and I feel strongly about, because I feel that it shouldn't matter. And I think you go back and, it's something I think it's going to be interesting, and we need to make sure we take care of in the best way.
I think if you got a gun, that's a lot different, like Kenny Brett smoking pot and passing out at a stoplight, or Kenny Brett smoking pot and getting pulled over and not having his driver's license. That could happen to anybody. But
it can happen to anybody.
It just doesn't seem right. I'll tell you something else that bothers me a lot. I know people don't like hearing about the CBA, but forever, is it still 4 years to be vested?
Yes.
And that, considering the average career is less than that, that's not fair. Why didn't y'all fight to have been invested 2 years?
Well, we could have fought for whatever we wanted.
That just doesn't seem right that a guy, when your average career is what, 3.5 years?
3.5 years.
But you got to play 4 to be vested. And if you're on IR all your rookie year, does that count toward being vested?
Anytime spent on IR can consist of a year towards all.
Good, because it used to not.
And all that counts towards it, as well as, any of that. If you're on, I want to say, if you're active for 4 games, that counts towards your vested. If you're active for 6 games, that counts towards free agency. So
Steve Slayton, when he was released before Miami cut him, I said that because he was on the roster at the start of the season, he would be paid as $1.2 million. I was quickly corrected. No, that's not right, because he wasn't a vested veteran.
Yeah, it's actually like 50 games, so it's actually 3.5 years to be vested. But you're right. I mean, it's after your 4th. You have to be going into your 5th year to be completely vested.
After everything that guy went through, fusion, surgery, he had a great year. It just seems like players have to go through so much. A lot of times it's early in your career, and you walk away and you're not vested.
You're right, and I think that's something that, I'll be brutally honest with you. I think, if you want that, if players want that, we got to take a hard look at that and say, are we willing to miss games for it? Are we willing to miss a season for it? Because
you were willing to miss it.
Was it on the table? Was it on the table as one of the things that you were looking for?
Well, when you're in a negotiation, anything's on the table.
Yeah.
But
what are you willing to give up? What do you got?
And that's something that's, like I said, obviously it wasn't important enough to enough guys for it to be brought up, for it to be something that was discussed.
Arian Foster could rush for 2,000 yards this year, lead the league in everything, and if his career ended before next year, he wouldn't be vested.
And that means, basically, under the new agreement, you've taken care of guys. You're taking care of guys better in the future, right?
But it's
not just guys in the past. I know there's a lot of focus on the old veterans.
But that, again, a lot of those pensions have to do with vested veterans, like John said.
They have to be vested to get
guys that have played 50 games or more. What you're talking about is pre-93 guys.
Right.
A lot of their minimums went way up. Again, after 06, they went up.
Greg Cook got a good raise.
Yeah, Greg Cook got a good raise. Gary Kubiak got a good raise, too.
Yes, he did.
So guys like that are going to be taken care of and hopefully won't want for anything. They're not going to be living high on the hog. I mean, I'm not going to, say that we set them up at the Ritz or anything, but at the same time, they're guys that, they're not, if they're 65 and are struggling, they're going to be bringing in a monthly income where they don't have to work, to get there.
Invested as a pension and benefits and all of that.
Some benefits.
Medical benefits too, right?
Not certain medical benefits. Has to do more with the 88 plan, the John Mackey plan. It has to do with some of the brain stuff's going to be taken care of now, certain other ailments. But again, that's not something that there's not lifetime medical care. There are certain ways to do it, but I don't consider it yet lifetime medical care.
Is that why? And John made this a better question for you. Some of the old players, I'm not sure if it's the Carl Eller group or a different group, are filing suit over a CBA, which helps out a lot of the old-time veterans.
Yeah, in a way, we could have said, all right, all the veterans, everyone that's not currently with the NFLPA, fend for yourself.
But you guys took care of those guys, and yet you're still being sued by them. I guess they didn't feel like they had.
It's not what they want.
There's an old saying: you're not going to make everyone happy.
What bothers me is who represents them. There's so many groups. They don't have one organization, and who's going to administer what they get? They have all these different factions threatening to sue, but one person is not in charge of everybody.
Yeah, there's a NFL alumni group. There's a Gridiron Greats group. The biggest group is the NFLPA, the NFL Players Former Players Association is the biggest by far group. But you're right. There's too many factions. I'm hoping in the future we can find a way to get everybody under the same roof and get that to be, like you said, more of a cohesive unit as well, because it's important, I think, for the former players.
It bothers me when I see Conrad Dobler had 20-something operations and he can't walk, and his wife's an invalid, and he has to pick her up and carry her to the bathroom and take care of her, but he got passed up by some board for some technicality. And Wilbur Marshall, who has part of his legs amputated for diabetes, he gets turned down as well. And I'm not talking about guys whether they've blown what they had or not, but sometimes guys need help.
Well,
and it's obviously need help, and there ought to be something there to help them.
I 100% agree, and it's something that it's tough. There's not a smoking gun. There's not an easy answer to any of these questions, because the owners will come back and say, we weren't owning the teams when these guys were playing. Why should we have to pay for that? Why should we have to deal with some of these issues? Is that your issue? Is that our issue? And it's complicated. It's not easy. And believe me, there was a lot of discussions that all these discussions I had over the off season about the CBA. All of them weren't about how we're going to split this money up. It's about how do you do things like that? How are pensions and making the it slips my mind what we called the new fund that we built. But for the first time, owners are giving money, are giving the majority of money to the pre-93 guys and to funds like this that can help guys. And I think that's important, and we're giving a lot of it. And a lot of it, to tell you the truth, is coming from the new drafted rookies. A lot of it from the first 15 picks. A lot of that savings is going to a lot of those players.
Give it to guys who proved it on the field. I mean, if the rookies are good enough, they're going to make their money anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Cam Newton's only getting $22 million guaranteed. The way that guy's playing, he'll redo his deal in 3 years. No telling what
Less than half of what Jamarcus Russell got guaranteed.
Sam Bradford got $50 million, the most ever. I'll tell you something. Transamerica, and I told Eric about this, as a program doesn't get a lot of attention. Mike Haynes from the NFL administers it, and all anybody has to do, if you're an ex-player and if you're under 65 and you want to join up, you don't even need a physical. If you're over 65, you do. And what they do is, if you have to go into a rest home or an assisted living home, they take care of you. Won't cost you a penny. If they'd had this with John Mackey, he wouldn't have died where he died. He'd have died in a nice rest home somewhere in Baltimore, and not in some dive or wherever he did. But in Transamerica, the NFL, I think, gave him $6 million to start the program, and they looked at a lot of different insurance companies. For whatever reason, Transamerica said, we'll do it. And you don't think about that now.
Sure.
But you could end up in an assisted living or a rest home, and
100%.
And you don't want your kids having to pay all their money they got for to take care of you.
Big spot.
This is taken care of already.
Big spot here for the Bucs. 4th and 1, and they are right around the 30-yard line.
And they're bringing a new quarterback in. This is something I cannot stand.
Josh Johnson, is it?
Unless Freeman's hurt, which I know he's not.
No, he's not.
This is Johnson's.
Yeah,
going to
they're bringing
run
in to take a snap under center to now run
an option.
And it works.
And of course, it was the right call. But that's ballsy, right? I mean,
I can't stand it.
I can't stand that either.
It's something. I mean, you're taking in a
Could
quarterback
fumble
that
Yep.
hasn't been in the game yet, and
it's like I hate the Wildcat. It's such a gimmick.
the play was well designed. They end up with a cornerback out
great.
there
You have a
alone
2-on-1.
against two.
You know you're never going to get it, but
See, they should have cleaned this clock the one chance they got.
It's a big play for the Bucs, who've been struggling to score points tonight, really shooting themselves in the foot.
You guys will be there this year. I think y'all beat them.
Texans play at Tampa in
November,
October,
I think.
November.
November, I want to say. Later
You
in the
beat
year.
Oakland. I know you want to go undefeated, but if you lose to Baltimore, then you get Jacksonville and Cleveland here.
Tennessee.
At Tennessee, then Jacksonville and Cleveland. Who would have thunk y'all's game against Tennessee up there was going to be something for both teams? I'm happy for Munchak, Matthews.
Tennessee.
Frank Bush is there. Chris Palmer.
It's one of the best stories of the year.
Jerry
I think
Gray.
Peter King in his quarterly awards had Mike Munchak as the coach of the year over some of the other coaches that.
Over Schwartz.
Over Jim Schwartz, who has the Lions
See, I
undefeated.
couldn't do that over
Can we
Schwartz.
get Chan Gailey in there? Just a little talk about
Yeah,
Chan
Chan,
Gailey. I mean,
Chan's done
Yeah,
a
this is
fabulous
something
job.
I'm sorry. This is something I meant to ask you one-on-one. What do you think about all the talk that Buffalo will be the next team that moves?
it makes me want to throw up to think about it, to know what that team means to the people of Buffalo. It's already embarrassing that they play a couple of games up in Toronto. It really is a slap in the face to the fans that have been there. I mean, you got one of these original AFL teams, and again, you come to a city like Houston, man, there's a lot to do here.
Sure.
And it means everything to those people. It means everything to the people of Buffalo for that team, and I get it. But we need some of these small markets, okay? Pick on somebody else. Take Minnesota.
Ralph
Take
Wilson
Minnesota out
says
to-
he doesn't have to raise his ticket prices by playing that game there because of all the money he makes. And the reason everybody says Buffalo is Ralph dies, he said that it's sold. He's got no relatives left, so everybody assumes the brewery's going to buy it, move it to Toronto, have a Buffalo package. But Larry Felser is the most beloved columnist. He's retired now for Buffalo News, and Larry was like Mr. Buffalo. He told me 2 years ago there is a group of 3 billionaires from upstate New York that are going to buy it and keep it there. And he didn't say could. He said they would.
They will.
He said they will. He said they will not let this franchise leave. They will pay whatever it takes. He acted like they may already have some kind of agreement in place with Ralph Wilson. Ralph's health's real bad right now. I don't think he's been to a game yet. And, his daughter died, Linda Bognan, who's a scout. And she was personnel director. And he said, I can't control it from the grave, but I wish there was some way he would put it in his will that it had to be, the state had to
He could do
sell
something
it.
while he's here.
He could do, yes, he
absolutely
could.
And if these 3 guys do exist, then I would think that he would try to find a way. I would think that he realizes what that community means to him. We named the stadium after him.
Who owns the Sabres?
A guy just came in and bought the Sabres, and he's like super fan number
Local?
1. He made all his money elsewhere, but he's a Buffalo dude, and he came back, bought them, starts pumping money into the team, redid all the lockers, and people are feeling really good about it. The team's going to stay there for a while. We're hoping maybe the same thing with the Bills. It'd be awful if they left.
What's the community like, though? You hear so many stories about how Buffalo now is, from once a proud town and area, is now completely depleted.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of
is
the
that-
same things that you see, like with Detroit, and Detroit's trying to, they got a great campaign going on with, the making of the cars. We don't even have that, we don't, we've got a few factories that are still, there's a Chevy plant and, the GM plant that my dad used to work at, my sister works at now, and then it got sold, and now it's a bad situation. It's a very depressed area. There's a lot of smokestacks not churning out the smoke that they used to. People are moving away. They can't retain the people there. I hope they can if they do cut a deal with these guys, it's going to have to be a long-term deal, because a short-term deal won't work. Then somebody will come in, or like you said, the brewery, they'll go to Toronto. Is the NFL interested in Canada?
No, the NFL doesn't want them to move, but you can't make an owner anymore do what you want.
Is it Labatt's, or which brewery is it
in
Toronto?
In Toronto, I don't know.
One of the
There's
Molson.
so many of them.
The Molson.
I think
Right,
it's the
Molson.
Molsons.
Yeah,
I thought maybe Rogers, whoever Rogers is, all the Rogers Center, and
in Toronto.
they do all. I think Rogers is the big telecom
Yeah.
giant up there in Toronto. I figured he might.
But I know LA's
No, it's
licking
a
their
brewery.
chops over there, too.
Yeah,
You
LA,
know,
you gotta think
LA wants a team.
And this is the interesting part, is you wonder if the NFL is waiting to not assign an expansion team. Because one way or another, Goodell's going to have a team in LA, and I still think in 10 or 15 years there might be 2 teams in LA.
But can San Diego support what they've got there? I mean, there's
Well,
been a lot of
that's a
talk
big
of San
question
Diego
mark,
moving
you
up.
know.
San Diego will never get a new stadium. The only way they're going to get a new stadium is move to LA.
Yeah,
Right, that's why people thinking.
I think it'd be smart for San Diego. I think it'd be smart for the league probably to get a team back in LA. And you know what? having San Diego and LA would probably be the best, because let's face it, LA is a place that
Phillip Rivers,
glitz and glamour.
Vincent
You don't want.
Jackson,
I mean,
Antonio
and I know
Gates type.
not to. Let's take out the last 4 games of the Buffalo Bills, but even Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't yearn the hearts of the young LA
Fred
women.
Jackson.
Correct.
So
they're all fifth rounders.
blue-collar
But
guy.
it's a
winning right now.
blue-collar city, though. I mean, it's fitting.
Jacksonville's
teams
the
adopt
one
the
that
identity.
should move. But Wayne Weaver, they say, will never sell, and he will never move because he's local.
That's a shame, because I'd love
He
for the
couldn't
Texans
live
to go
there
to LA
and let the team
once
go.
a year. It'd be nice to go out there.
If somebody knows what it's like to lose their team, I don't like to see anybody lose a team.
Yeah, and if it's San Diego, if it's the Chargers moving up to LA, then you're just relocating to a different part of Southern California.
I was like every other media person, devastated when it moved. Raiders and Rams, because we got free trips out there all the time. But I used to go to those games, and the stands weren't half full. And so all the games were blacked out in the area. And once the teams left, they get 3 games every weekend. One of them being the Chargers. They always show the Cowboys. And I'm not sure, the 49ers. And so they've had the best of both worlds. But if they put a team in there and it doesn't work, they won't. If they're not winners, they're not going to go.
That's a city.
I just
They need to
refuse
have
to believe
Andrew
that
Luck.
you cannot get 60,000 people in a stadium there.
They need to
I
have
refuse
Andrew
to
Luck
believe
there.
in a city of 7 million
Talk about a
people.
city with transplants. Houston's got a lot of
You can't
transplants,
get
but LA, there's
0.1%,
hardly anybody
0.01% of the population.
You have
that
to.
doesn't want to live
Because
there.
it's
you
a
see
lot
those-
of trouble to get there.
But those LA Raider games, you looked at the Coliseum and it was empty. I mean, it was empty.
Well, it was so dangerous. Press parking at the LA Coliseum was between us and that door over there. And we'd say, okay, see you after the game. And they said, we're going to walk you to your car. So our car's right there. We're going to walk you to your car. And you walk to your car, you're scared to death if they think you're in that kind of danger right there. And so that was when it was at the Coliseum. That's one reason the owners will never
Now the
go
new
back to the
stadium
Coliseum.
is being proposed. There's one right downtown.
Downtown's perfect.
City Center
But
downtown.
that other place down at the confluence down by where the soccer stadium is, that's not a good area.
There's
People up here
There's
at
all
Beverly
kinds
Hills,
of problems
they're not going
making
down
those
there.
plans. We've heard about plans. I mean, the reason that the Texans that Houston got the expansion team was because LA couldn't get its act together. I
Right.
mean, we're still looking at
Right.
a situation that, is iffy at best to happen in LA getting a new stadium.
They won't build it unless you'll come. You won't come unless they build it.
The Texans franchise was supposed to go to LA, right?
They had the exclusive negotiating period, and Roger Goodell was in charge of it. During that period where they could only negotiate with L.A., Roger was out there hanging around with Michael Ovitz and being wined and dined. And then somebody told me, you notice Ovitz isn't going out, Goodell's not going out there as much, and he's not getting as much attention. I hear that must mean they don't have their act together, which means there's a good chance for Houston. I didn't believe it.
The back door
That turned
opened
out to be right.
Bob McNair swept in with
McNair
$1
told me
billion.
all along, they're not going to get it. I've got my people out there. The place they're talking about building he had done soil samples and stuff, and there's too many of this bird close to there. The fans, they'll never go for it. Probably all funded by Bob. And he and Rich McKay.
No.
McKay was the general manager, and his brother, J.K., was on the committee. And Rich said, they'll never get it. You're going to get the team. I said, we're not getting it. Yes, you are. He said, bet the house. I remember writing a column, bet the house, L.A. over Houston.
Houston over LA.
No, I said L.A.
Oh, you
over
said the other
Houston,
way.
Yeah.
So a lot of
As
people
usual, I
are
was
now
wrong.
homeless because of you, John. The Colts trying to get something going offensively here.
Now, John, what do you think of Curtis Painter so far?
Looking back, they probably should have stuck with him from day one and just had him take his growing pains. But I think Bill Polian convinced him that Collins could come in there and learn all that in a short period of time.
I think Garcon reach out and
Yeah,
try to turn
that's an
Talib.
interest- that's an
Sneaky little
interesting
move,
move,
right?
Based
Veteran
on
move.
Painter right now and the touchdown drive he had against the Steelers,
Let's just say right here he comes back, Indianapolis wins the game. However it happens. Kerry Collins is healthy. Curtis Painter start.
I think they're going to stick with
Painter's good.
Painter.
Win or lose, you
Caldwell
think,
wants
John?
to go with Painter, and Polian wanted to go with Collins.
You
Collins
think so?
and a number of the players came out when they
Yeah,
signed
I
Kerry
mean Reggie
Collins.
Wayne
Wayne
is
was
Reggie Wayne was.
He's done
I've
it
never
twice.
seen a guy bag on another veteran like that. It's impressive.
Buffalo is one of those cities. Who doesn't like the Bills? who doesn't pull for Buffalo? Even the teams in the East. You know, okay, it's a division rival. Everybody, to me, likes to see Buffalo do well. It's like the Saints are the same.
It's funny that you said that. My little brother, growing up, I'm from Midland, Texas. And I don't know if you know where Midland is.
The thriving metropolis.
Just keep heading west.
All I know about Midland is from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, you're New Orleans.
The movie.
You're New Orleans, Houston, and then as you go to Austin, then head a little bit northwest of there, you'll run into Midland. And if you see the Pump Jacks, you know you're in the right spot. Well, my family's actually from Massachusetts. Long story short, all of us had one thing in common. I'm one of 4 boys. All of us had one thing in common. We all hated the Cowboys growing up. My little brother, one of my little brothers, my nearest to me, is the biggest Buffalo Bills fan.
How did he get to be a Bills?
I have no idea. I was a San Francisco 49er fan. My little brother was the run of the family, so he was the little engine that could. Steve Tasker was his favorite player. He had you remember the Steve Tasker videos that came out, the Get Better, the working out?
Yeah.
Drew had those and worked out in his room to him. I mean, he was Buffalo. Jim Kelly, and I told him my freshman year at Miami, Jim Kelly came to the Florida State game, the one game where they missed it right instead of left, and that was my freshman year at Miami, and Jim Kelly's there, and it's a noon game, late September, early October, still pretty humid in Miami. I mean, he's in jeans and he is drenched in sweat. And he's got a Coke, and I'm walking into the locker room, and in the old Orange Bowl in Miami, there was like a little locker room, and he kind of kept walking to the right, and then you went into the big locker room. And there was a huge refrigerator there with drinks and sodas and Gatorades for everybody, and he's sitting down in there, and we're all starting to come in. And he's sitting down in there, and he's having a Coke or a Diet Coke, and I mean, just dripping. And I mean, looked like he was out there playing. Full tight jeans on, shirt.
Probably been up all night.
He looks at me, he goes, "That was the greatest game I've ever seen." And I look back, and I'm a freshman at Miami. And I played in the game, and I mean, it was a great game. And I looked at him, and I just kept walking. And I immediately called my brother, and I was like, "You won't believe what just happened." He was pissed. I don't think he talked to me for a month.
He's a god back home. I mean, still, this guy,
he lives up there still, though, right?
A lot of these guys came back. They went elsewhere, and they realized, you know what? There's opportunities in Buffalo. I'm a superstar there. Thurman Thomas, I believe, recently went back. You got guys like Andre Reed. He's pushing his barbecue sauce, and a lot of these guys went back. I believe Eric Moulds still splits time. I believe Eric in Mississippi, and then I think he still has a place outside of Buffalo.
Buffalo, I'm sure, is gorgeous in about April or May.
It really is, but it's completely everything that you've ever heard. It's
cheap to live in, too.
Yeah.
It's miserable in the wintertime. It really is. I've got no interest of being in that snow anymore. I mean, I could tell you stories all the way back to delivering papers, okay? It's a mess. You don't want to be around it, but it's a great place. It's a great community, and these guys are superstars there. So, you know what? They can still, cut the ribbon at, grocery stores and still make some money.
What's Jim Kelly doing up there? Does he have some businesses going?
He does a lot of charity work still. He's got...
I'm sure he made a good amount of money.
He made some dough. And, he tried, back when he was playing, he put in a nightclub downtown, and he tried to do the right thing and pump some money downtown Buffalo. Don't laugh, downtown Buffalo. And, it just didn't work, So I know he does a lot of charity work, and, I don't think Jim has to work,
Yeah.
But I'm sure he stays busy. He's out there golfing. He's got a big golf tournament every year that everybody comes to it. He has he just did his... might have been the 25th one. He's done it for a long, long time, but he's raised all kinds of money.
For autism, too, correct?
I don't know the condition of his son.
Yeah.
His son
passed
autism
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, still to this day, one of the greatest Hall of Fame speeches, and I'm sure John's probably seen them all.
Yeah.
But one of the greatest Hall of Fame speeches of all time, all he wanted was his son to see him go in the Hall of Fame. Not a dry eye, and maybe to this day,
emotional. Jesus.
Maybe to this day, the most people ever for a Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
The one that
Jim went in.
Yeah.
The most heavily attended.
Who all went in with Jim?
I can't remember.
They traveled for Jim. It was
everybody
was there for
Jim.
Jim.
Yeah.
Well, it's not terribly far. I mean, I guess
From
you
had people coming from Pittsburgh,
Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, you had Pennsylvania and New York coming to see it. So I believe it's when somebody from Buffalo goes in, they're pretty well attended.
Yeah.
I think he began his career here.
Yeah, Houston Gamblers.
Sacked 76 times.
The USFL.
Was that right?
That was it was the the run and shoot, Mouse Davis was in charge
People
of
don't
that
remember.
offense, right?
People don't know the story. Not many, but the reason he went to the University of Miami was that Penn State wanted him to be a linebacker.
Is that right?
They
wouldn't
didn't
let him play
recruit him as a quarterback?
They wouldn't let him play quarterback, and Miami was the only place that they said, "Yeah, come on, play quarterback."
I thought he
that
went the
started.
same reason all y'all went there.
It's not like Baylor, John. It's not like Baylor. It's not like
We don't have yachts.
It's not how you.
We don't have yachts on Lake Waco.
I saw the 30
Lake,
for 30.
Lake,
I saw
Lake Waco's not big enough for a yacht.
I saw the, what is it, Naughty by Nature, was it, right?
No, it's
Not
No,
Naughty by
Two
Nature.
Live Crew.
Two Live Crew, that's it. Okay.
Luther Campbell.
Luther
Yeah, I saw the 30
Uncle
for 30.
Luther.
Oh,
Uncle
was that?
Luther.
You knew him well?
No, that's what they called him.
Yeah, I know. That's what they call him.
I
He's
actually
old Uncle
out of all the
Luther.
people, I saw almost every Miami former player, alumni, everybody. I never saw that guy. I saw Jay-Z on the sidelines. Never saw that guy. I think he's kind of been pseudo banned from.
I think you're right.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're worried about him getting arrested like he was by the Dade County Police a couple times.
We all make mistakes.
The U during that period was more fun to watch than any team in college
Oh, my
history.
God.
Sure.
The NFL said no team has ever had players better prepared to play right away than Miami during that era.
The Jimmy Johnson.
With
era?
Jimmy and
Schnellenberger
Schnellenberger,
before
Jimmy, Erickson,
Yep.
and then when Butch Davis turned it around, it's just
It's just different animals there.
I think it's because most of them came from Florida, and Florida and Texas got the best high school
A
football.
lot of talent, great kids. Guys are hungry. That was the thing that you saw. You saw hunger at a lot of these guys. And I don't know where it is now, but man, some of those cats they're ready to go. I mean, they're ready to whatever you wanted to compete in.
Best college to play for, though? I mean, for you? I mean,
it's looking back on it. It's would I do it again? Probably, absolutely. I mean, at the time in my life, I was from Midland. We had traveled a lot as a family. I was lucky enough that we'd pack up the car and go somewhere for 2 weeks. We drove to Colorado one year and saw my godfather in Denver and just drove around. And we'd one time had flown to D.C. and then drove up D.C. and gone up. That's little stuff. Got kind of more of a worldly view. The people from Texas think it's okay just to stay in Texas, and I mean, I guess that's okay. It's whatever you want to do, but people looked at me like, why would you ever want to leave Texas? Like there's other things out there.
There's other states.
I love Texas. Don't get me wrong.
Have you seen the beaches in Miami?
I'd like to get back at some point, but it's okay to leave. And I just looked at it like it was a chance for 4 years. You can always come home. You can always come home.
rock stars at the U.
And
rock stars.
It's a different place, though. I do envy some of the stuff that kids go through at Texas A&M. Living in neighborhoods of just college kids. Having 100,000 people at your game, having the alumni, the college town, that public school kind of college experience. We didn't have that at Miami, so
it's a small school,
the
right?
things I did,
What's
it's
enrollment?
12,000. I mean, that's total. That's with the grad school and everything. So, to have, we had some things that you can't understand in Austin or in College Station. The social melting pot I was a part of, the civil classes that I got daily from walking the streets of Miami that no one else can understand.
The women at the parties.
Yeah.
South Beach.
It is
South Beach. But to understand what separates the Colombians from the Honduran, that stuff, you learn about these people because a lot of them are all in your classes. I mean, I was in an international marketing class that had more people from outside of the U.S. than inside the U.S. because all the big money South Americans send their kids to Miami.
Right.
So that's, you meet a lot of these people, and it's just, you learn so much about people there. And that's something that I'll probably more than anything else that I'll take away is I learned so much about different cultures and different people at Miami. And I thought that was worth just as much as the degree. And
you guys get together? Is there alumni or anything? I mean, does the team ever get together or anything like that?
You mean back at Miami?
Yeah. Is it organized?
There's a group of guys, a group of offensive linemen, and I didn't go this year because I was gone the previous 2 weeks and I just couldn't make it. But there's a group of guys. Brett Romberg, that class is about 3 or 4 years ahead of me. Most of the seniors when I was a freshman, in the class before that, they're kind of organizing right now an alumni football group that they're all going back to the spring game. And Chris Myers went this past year and told me that a lot of guys went and that they're going to try to make it a big year, a big annual thing. And I like to see it because those guys, I mean, I'm telling you, they're a lot of them are cut-ups. You know, a lot of them, we've gotten a bad rap over the years, probably deservedly so for some things, but at the same time, you know, these guys are great guys. The guys I played with are great guys. You know, people see it. Andre Johnson's the norm out of Miami. It's not.
So you wouldn't
it's
think
not
that.
the
It's
other.
not
It's
the
not
flash
the other.
and the
Yeah,
glitz
it's
and the
not the
glamour.
other. You know, a lot of these guys are quiet guys, and they get drowned out by the couple noisy
The
ones.
Michael
but-
Irvins.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
get drowned out by the couple. But I'm telling you, a lot of the guys are much more like Andre instead of like Michael or like Kellen Winslow or anything.
Vinatieri for the go-ahead field goal,
And he misses it.
and he missed it.
Well, that's the thing is Vinatieri's going to miss the field goal with 12 minutes, but when it's a minute left, he's going to hit it.
And he probably will. He'll
Yeah.
probably win it with a
To
field
win the
goal.
game.
Is there fraternizing
Bad
in
snap.
Miami between black and white players?
Sure. Yeah.
Because it seemed like the guys that make all the racket are black, and
Well, Andre Johnson.
Bubba McDowell, and Andre, to me, are the antithesis. Alonzo Highsmith always thought of as the U, because he loves it so much. He's been compiling a book on the U. I said behind the scenes, no, of all the good things. I said nobody's going to read your
You want
book.
to see?
We want to read about the
dirt.
the U, the good stuff.
You know what's
But
funny
he
is
just loves it.
That's. I want to talk more about the U and, of course, the fourth quarter. Right now, though, hey, it's time for another one-on-one segment. Eric Winston gets to turn the tables on John McClain here to ask him the questions in our one-on-one segment. Before that, let's show you a little clip of John's weekly show, Radio Faces, with NFL veteran Indy Kalu.
Now the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in. They've won 2 in a row after getting blown out by the Ravens. Can the Texans beat a team that has dominated them the last 2 times they've played?
Yes, they can. There's a chink in Pittsburgh's armor. They're not the same Pittsburgh team that's been going to Super Bowls. They're not the same team from last year. Their offensive line is depleted. I have the Texans winning this game 28-21.
You think they're going to put up 28 points
28
on the
points.
steel curtain?
all right. Turning the tables now. John McClain with me for one-on-one. John, you know we've talked a lot about. I mean, you've been in the locker rooms forever, and since I've been here, and you know it's always fun.
Usually you're naked.
Yeah. I don't even. We're gonna start this over. No, it's this is, but you know we always talk about different historical things. I'm a big football fan. Obviously, you're a huge football fan. But where did the love of football for you start? You know, what was it when you were a kid?
My dad.
When it was, how did that happen?
My dad, when I was a little kid, where'd yours start?
Well, my brother. I watched my
Your
brother
older
play,
brother?
and we, I grew up in the bastion of high school football, and when I grew up, I was, I wanted to play. I didn't want to play
Did you
pro.
go to high
I don't.
school games
I don't
when
want
you
to
were
play
a kid?
pro football. I don't want to play college football. I wanted to play for Midland Lee on Friday nights.
I wanted to play quarterback for the Cowboys or center field for the Astros. And at one point, I realized I wasn't going to do it. But that was because of my dad. When I was little, growing up in Waco, he was a fanatic about all sports, but especially football. He was an old Navy man from World War II and a tough guy. Made us wear a flat top all the time. When the Beatles came out and I wanted to grow my hair a little longer, he told me he'd kick me out of the house if I did. And so I grew flat top out just a little bit, and friends would come over and I'd have to go stand in the backyard because my dad was so conservative. He didn't want them to see me. But the thing that bonded us was sports, and especially college and pro football. And like our high school there was one at the time, Waco High. Now there's like 8 or 9. He always liked it, but I didn't. He tried to get me to go, but all I cared about was the pros.
That's all you always. But you follow now. You follow. You're a Baylor Bear, correct?
Right.
And you follow college football.
I
I
have
know you
to.
don't write about it a lot.
No,
but
I have to talk about it on the radio and stuff. And I love college football. I love all sports, just like you and I love hockey. I'm a big hockey fan. And I like the NBA, especially in the playoffs, and baseball. But to me, pro football is where it's at. NFL is where it's at. How many businesses can you say you're in like you are, or you write about, like me, NFL, and the brand is known everywhere. You don't even have to spell it out. And I've felt that way probably since 1960, when I can first remember games.
Now, I don't know if it was because I was a kid and I grew up liking college football a little bit more than liking pro football at that point. And I don't know if it was just watching it more or whatever it was, but I did. Do you feel like over the last 10 years or so that the NFL has risen to new heights, that it's been bigger than it's ever
Without
been?
a doubt. Every year it goes up. Look at the TV ratings.
But not just that, but
revenue.
the feeling you get from the people watching it, and I know we live in a pro city, but even when I go back to Midland or talk to people that don't have necessarily a team per se or have any local rooting interest, it feels like people are watching the NFL games much more, because I felt like at some point there was the college football and pro football were kind of even. Now I don't. Now I feel like more people watch pro football now than ever before.
More people watch pro football than watch all the other sports combined, if you look at the ratings. And I think fantasy football has brought a lot of people.
I do too.
Into, like, women, guys that didn't really care about it. I know people couldn't tell you who's playing on Sunday, the teams, but they've got a fantasy football team, and they're fascinated by it. And I think that's one of the greatest things. And the NFL can never admit this, but they know how much popularity y'all get from gambling. If there's 10 million wagered legally in Vegas on the NFL, think about what's wagered illegally. And so the popularity just continues to grow. And then it's almost like the lockout. It was almost like a marketing ploy by the players and the owners to get people even more fired up. So college football grows as well. Football in general just dwarfs the other sports.
It really has. Now, let's talk about you're a member, and not, I wouldn't say outspoken, but you're willing to talk about it. You're willing to talk about the people you vote for of the Hall of Fame committee. How's that been serving? Because I feel like that's even brought a bigger spotlight in the last 5, 6, 10 years than ever before. I feel like people care now much more than in the past about who gets in and who doesn't. What's that experience been like as far as being on that committee and voting guys in like that?
Think about this, Eric, how much bigger the draft's become. Think about how much bigger the combine has become. When I started going to the combine, there were like 5 or 6 of us hanging out in a hotel lobby trying to grab players as they came by to get stuff for our draft series in 2 months later. And now, of course, it's grown. Last year they had over 800 credentials just for the combine, and now it's on TV. So the league looks for anything that it can market, and the other sports are so envious, and they've made the Hall of Fame a bigger event as well. And when it was started in '99, they put it in prime time. They've done everything whatever's best for TV to get the most viewers, and the fans that go there, as far as the Hall of Fame experience, they wouldn't trade it for the world. And more people go to Canton. And as far as the actual, so because of their interest in the Hall of Fame, they're going to pay more attention to who gets in. And I think I've been on a committee like 18 or 19 years. It's the most incredible responsibility I could ever have. I see people that were condescending, arrogant jerks when they played. And then they were tired and they start getting close to the hall, they like melt. Then when they get in the hall, they cry like babies. And to see them like that is just unbelievable, to be behind the scenes and see it. And I wouldn't give up that. As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to be on the Hall of Fame selection committee.
Now, what goes into that? What kind of, what's that all about?
It's a year-long process in which 44 of us, everywhere I go, like if I see John Clayton from ESPN in the press box, we may start talking about the Hall of Fame, who we think should be in, who we don't. If he has somebody he's pushing, somebody I'm pushing, and I'm doing this constantly all year round. I go to Washington. You guys play in Washington. I go see Sam Huff and Sonny Jurgensen, part of the Redskins broadcasting crew. They're in the Hall of Fame. I want to ask them, who do you think that we should have in that's not in? Al Davis in the owners meeting, if he's nice enough to stop, who do you think ought to be in? I want to know what the greatest of the great think about what we should be doing. And it's a hard thing. It's a tough, every year there's so many good ones, but everybody we put in, people say, that guy doesn't deserve it. And I'll say, really? Well, let me run these things by you. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys do a ton, and I've followed it the last a few years too, because Peter King as well is on there, yourself on there, a few guys that I've read columns of talk about it, because just like you said, it seems like it comes across as such a responsibility, and I think it's awesome that guys like yourself are on it, because it wouldn't mean as much, I think, if it wasn't looked at such a responsibility.
Well, most people, Eric, don't even know the process.
Yeah, and that's the tough part.
And I think, and we're there to tell everybody how we go about it and the whole procedure. But I see some of the ex-players on TV, like you're on the show, Chris Carter's there, and we didn't put in Chris the first year, so these other players start blasting the committee. And I wanted to think, well, you idiot, we put you in there the first ballot.
Yeah.
And now you're ripping us, and Chris Carter will get in there. It's just, you can't put everybody in at 1 year, because there's so many other guys deserving who've been passed up.
Now, let me ask you this. You have, getting away from football a little bit, you have a love of movies. And,
I sure do.
And being in movies, you've been in, 3 or 4 movies at least?
7.
7 movies. So you've had some cameos, you've had some short roles, but actually a big role you had was in Cook County, which was filmed in the Houston area, and was an independent movie made, but it's from what I've heard, I haven't seen it yet. Outstanding movie.
I'll bring you a DVD.
Outstanding movie.
It's coming out in November.
I heard people, it's hard to finish even, because it's so. I don't know.
Just don't walk out. Well, something you think's going to happen at the end doesn't.
Yeah, and so people need to watch Cook County. But what started into that? How'd that happen? The movie, and is that something you've been interested in?
I can't pinpoint a time like I could about sports. Sports, my grandfather, my father, everybody in my family was a sports nut. Every morning we read the paper. It was a big deal to read the sports section. I grew up in Waco and read Dave Campbell. And as far as my love for movies, I kind of think that began. I used to see a lot, but my wife Carol's like me. She loves them. Sometimes we'll go see an off-season, 7 in a weekend. We like seeing them at the theater on a big screen instead of waiting till the DVD comes out. As a member of the Screen Actors Guild, I get a lot of free DVDs that I never even look at because I've already seen it on the big screen. And I love talking about movies, just the business of movies and TV shows. I just think it's fascinating.
You got one last column to write, and you get a chance to write it on anybody. Doesn't even have to be a athlete. Who you writing it on?
The last column I write before I take my last breath will be the Houston Texans winning the Super Bowl.
I want a player, though. I want someone that's, even if you wrote a column on before, or someone that you've always thought that was going to be someone that you'd want to be about. Who are you?
The most fascinating people I've ever written about were Bill Veeck, George Alice. I was in their offices by myself with them when I was in my 20s, but the one that was the most fascinating was Sammy Baugh. I went to his ranch in Rotan, Texas, and spent a night with him and wrote the equivalent of 9 open pages in the Chronicle, since he was the last surviving member of the original class of the Hall of Fame. And the Chronicle told me it's the only paper they ever ran out of. People ordered them from all over the world. And to have the honor of being there with Sammy Baugh and the way he talked and the stories he told, I still have the tapes. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I have like 19 hours of Sammy Baugh interviews.
Wow. John McClain, thanks for going one-on-one.
My pleasure, Eric. Thank you very much.
What do they do to spread out Troy Polamalu like Green Bay did in the Super Bowl, because he can't cover one-on-one, instead of letting him hang around the line of scrimmage and wreak havoc on the quarterback?
I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to use James Casey. They're going to have him go from the fullback position out and running pass routes, and Troy Polamalu is going to try to match up against them, but that's one thing he won't be able to do. Troy Polamalu makes big plays, but he's not going to be able to cover a James Casey or Owen Daniels or even a Joel Dreesen one-on-one.
I think that the Texans are going to win this game 23-20. I thought they're going to win it since before the season. I predicted they'd be 3-1, and I still believe it.
Radio Faces, John McClain and Indy Kalu. Where can you check that out, John, for those who want to see more of your shining
We
face?
shoot every week at Houston Community College. They have a TV station that is shown in the city limits. I don't have any idea how you get it. They also have a website at Houston Community College. Cron.com Sports runs snippets of Indy and I for a week on our blogs and on our website, and Sports Radio 610 runs on its website, runs it as well every week, and we have a good time. We start off talking about the Texans, then we make smart decision of the week, then we go into the league, then we make our predictions, and so far I've gotten the Texans right on every game.
Wow.
3-1. I'm going to get this one right, too. I'll be 4-1.
The Texans and Raiders coming up this weekend, even without Andre Johnson.
Doesn't
Texans
matter.
don't
They
miss
beat
a
him 2 times in his career. He's been out for a Raiders game, and they've won both games.
John McClain, Cron.com. He covers the Texans. He's been a beat writer in the NFL for 33 years. We've got a good game going here. The Bucs trying to drive for the go-ahead score midway through the fourth quarter. A Bucs team that has shot itself in the foot multiple times tonight, and yet they may still pull this out at home against a Colts team still desperate for its first win of the year. This 3rd and 6, big play here for Josh Freeman and the Bucs.
Can the Colts keep losing these close ones like they did Pittsburgh? They might lose this one, but you think they'll keep going strong?
That's Josh Freeman right there. I mean, that's like we were talking about in the pregame. You know, he'll have such an average game, and then all of a sudden he'll look at it and he'll say something that he'll do something that, you know, that just won them the game somehow. You know, that little thing like that. You trip 5 yards away, and he's got the presence of mind to jump and leap for the first down.
I like the guy. I tell you what. I mean, after seeing what he did last year, I know that there's been some shaky games this year. I mean, I think this guy's going to be around in Tampa for 10 years. I really do.
Yeah.
I think
He's 6'6", too.
He's a big dude. He's a great arm. I think he's only going to get better. I'd like to see some dynamic players around him. I like to see him open it up a little bit. You know, I don't think they want to. I don't think Raheem Morris necessarily wants to play that way. But at the same time, I'd like to see them gradually open it up a little bit more. Colts look gas right there. You don't see Mathis.
They're really pounding it up the middle.
Yeah.
And we saw the one Colts defensive tackle go out with an injury.
Yeah, they're probably down on guys.
Moala is not playing in this game. He was a scratch.
He's
also
been out for a while.
Brackett, of course,
So
is
give
on
it
the
to
injured
Blunt
reserve.
between the tackles.
Yeah, they've been really pounding
I
him
would
up the
keep
middle.
pounding. I mean, you know, listen, you're starting to get in the field goal range here pretty soon. You're already there pretty much. You know, I can't.
Oh,
There he goes.
I think they're past field goal range
in.
now.
Yeah,
They're about to be in
yeah,
touchdown
touchdown.
range.
Was that Blunt?
Yeah, that was Blunt for a big one.
And he didn't get it?
No.
No arms, huh?
1 yard line.
he's dancing like he got it.
Touchdown.
That's
John-
a touchdown.
I know Peyton Manning makes the Colts tick, right? But
Like
Jim
no other
Caldwell,
quarterback in history.
is Jim Caldwell in trouble if they have a terrible season? I mean, they're looking at, if they lose this game, being 0-4.
He was Tony Dungy's buddy, his handpicked choice to have that job. Now, Chris Polian has taken the power from his dad. Chris made some changes in scouting, personnel, and
Was that right? Bill's giving up some.
Bill's given some up.
He's getting up there,
if,
right?
If they, I do not see them. Well, Bill, yeah, Bill's up. He's put late. He may be 70 now, but it wouldn't surprise me if they don't have another coach next year. I have never had anybody tell me they thought Caldwell was a real good coach. He talk about being in the
inherited
right
the team.
place at the right time.
And now, on review,
Touchdown.
this is going to be a touchdown. He had possession of that ball
No doubt about
before
it. Touchdown.
before he went out of bounds.
No doubt about it.
The Colts
But
defense
Garrett
is
Blunt's a
just
big
gassed.
boy. I mean, they were, you know, and to think the Tennessee Titans had him in his camp.
Cut him.
They cut him. They thought they could get him on practice squad, and the Buccaneers swooped him up. And he's a talent now. He can go. He's athletic. He's big. He's tall. He's strong. Like I said, he's an impressive guy. I'm glad the Tennessee Titans let him go.
Do you still see the Colts losing all these close games, or at some point do they just crater?
As far as just kind of start giving up.
Yeah.
I was impressed in the fact that I think it was, I know it was only the first game of the year, but you saw all of them playing hard, even down 34-0 at halftime, a position they've never been in before in their careers. They all came out, Freeney, Mathis, those guys were playing hard in the second half. They're playing hard, and I think if they keep playing hard, you know, listen, I don't think they're going to win a lot of games this year. After Peyton went down, a lot of people said, oh, you know, they'll probably go 7-9 or 8-8 or 6-10.
That's what I thought.
And I said that is as generous as it gets.
8-8 is generous.
But they got so much.
Without Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Any number
People
one
do
picks.
not realize that the whole franchise has been built around him. Not the offense, not the defense, not the whole franchise. When I tell you the whole franchise, I mean everything. Everything has been built around that one guy. And when he's not in there to run the ship, no one can do it like he did. You know, that's the people, well, you know, does that mean he's more important than Tom Brady because they were able to go 11-5? I don't look at it that way. I look at it, it's comparing apples to oranges. You're looking at a franchise that's not built around one guy. You're looking at a franchise they're built separately. They have a defense that was a good defense still at the time, that was veteran, as a head coach that's also a GM does certain things, that believes in certain. The Colts did it a different way. No one's right or wrong in this situation because they've been the two winningest teams in the NFL. So, and they've done it different ways, but that team relied on him more than any other team. And when they lost him, they lost their way of doing things. Not just, they lost their way of practicing. They lost their way of meeting. I mean, everything.
He ran the practices.
Center around 18. And when he's not there, everyone just looks around and be like, what are we doing today?
Can he do anything as a non-starting quarterback to kind of keep some of that going? Can he be around at practices?
Yeah, he's around.
Can he be on the side?
Yeah, he's around. But
is it effective, though, in any way, like when he's starting?
Hard to tell. Hard to tell. I don't know. I mean, as far as you would think from just the respect he commands, and I'm sure it is, but you see him standing up right there in the press box. You know, he's standing up right there in the press box. He's got a ear set on. He knows what's going in, but, you know, it's got to be frustrating for him. I'm sure it is.
Cut your hair. Cut your hair.
And he's like, if you want to get in these commercials, you got to cut your hair. It's got to be frustrating and tough for him.
Doesn't that then answer the question of who the MVP is in the league? Isn't Peyton Manning the most
MVP,
valuable player? I mean,
no, because
you take
I don't
him off
look
that
at it that
team.
way. But you put Peyton Manning on okay, I'll put it this way. Switch Tom Brady and switch Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning got hurt that one day. Does that change the way the Patriots?
If he's with the Patriots? Well,
Yeah.
Matt
No.
Castle stepped in with New England and won 10 games.
And won 11 games.
11 games.
And that's what I'm saying. If Matt Castle is backing up Peyton Manning, he's still going to step in and win it because it's different team structure. There's different franchises. It's a different philosophy. And I just feel like the Colts put all their eggs in one basket. And it's worked for a long, long
Sure
time.
has.
And now it's just not working. Now that he's gone, it's not working.
Painter almost threw a pick.
Another pick going through the hands of the Bucs defensive backs. That's at least 2, maybe 3.
Keith would be better if he had a gun in one. He could catch the ball with the other.
Painter looked so good at the start. Is it a sign of the adjustments the Bucs have made in this game?
I'm
do you
sure
think?
they've
Or
made
is
some
this
adjustments.
water finding its level? I mean,
Both.
Painter's never been a
Both.
consistent
You know,
quarterback.
both. I think it's a little bit of both, but you know, there's a lot of people that think that Painter shouldn't be in the NFL. That
Wow.
Painter cannot name another team Painter can make.
Seattle, maybe.
But how do you have the best and the worst? How can
They've
he
never
not?
put any emphasis on their
You have
backup
to ask Chris
quarterback,
Paul.
ever.
They've let several backup quarterbacks. Jim Sorge go. They let so many backup quarterbacks go. They don't.
That's failure by the front office, though. I mean, of course, you've got one of the most durable quarterbacks of all time, but to just not even care about number 2, which apparently they didn't, that's failure.
You know, listen. I'm just that's the feeling around the league is that they just. You know, they never bothered developing, and that, like I said at the beginning of our show, I think that will be a black mark on Bill Polian's career, in the sense that, you know, if let's say that disaster strikes and they go 1-15 this year, 2-14, and it's largely because they had nobody adequate enough just to even go 8-8.
Okay, let me just play the other side of the fence, though. If you draft a quarterback in the, second, third round, he's going to sit on the bench until he can be a free agent, and then he's going to leave because Peyton never gets hurt. This just so happens to be the 1 year when Peyton got hurt.
Green Bay believed that there was a point where you had to move on.
Well, they brought Aaron Rodgers in, and Brett Favre was probably about the same age that Manning is now maybe he was 37, 38, a couple years older when he left and they turned the reins over to Rodgers. But if you're the Colts, you're thinking Peyton Manning doesn't take the chances that Brett Favre did. He doesn't play through a lot of pain. I mean, Favre would take a lot of hits. Manning doesn't. If anybody can play until they're 40, it's going to be Peyton Manning. Sure. So why use a high draft pick on
I'm not saying use a high draft pick, but I've always maintained, listen, there's plenty of guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th round that you can develop, that you can mold into good quarterbacks, that you can put in a lot of work with. That to me is not a crazy idea. It's not even a matter of can he come in and start games. One is if Payne gets hurt halfway through a game, sprains an ankle, can't continue, but can play the next week. You still need a guy that can go and finish that game, and that can finish the game adequately. It's just I just fail to see the thought process at all when it became very apparent over the last couple of years when Painter was in games on that he was going to be ready to go this year. How do you not have more? How do you not have a draft pick? How do you not have a viable free agent that's looking for a job, at least competing with him?
If you were running the Colts and they had the worst record, and you think, okay, Peyton's supposed to come back, would you draft Luck?
Yes. 100%.
I agree. I wouldn't pass him up.
You can't pass him up. And you know what? This sounds crazy and it sounds cold, but at some point you got to move on.
Wow.
You got to move on. And
that's a risky play, though. I mean, Peyton Manning's one of the best of all time.
Listen, okay, so Peyton's 35, going to be 36 next year. They draft Luck. They still got 3 or 4. They got 4 full years before they have to even make a decision.
And Peyton made $25 million for doing nothing this year, except sitting in the press box listening on the headphones. And Peyton's made a lot. He's made him a lot of money, but he's made a lot of money as well. And he
They got a huge decision coming up next year. He's got another option bonus for like 28.
So they can't afford Luck then, even if they do go.
Oh yeah, they can because the new
rules
with the rookie wage scale. They
22 over 4 years. Yeah, absolutely.
So they could afford him.
Oh sure. Believe me, these NFL teams are telling you, oh, we can't afford this guy, or we can't afford that guy.
Of course they can.
They can afford him.
Okay, do you think, just based on what you know and you think you know, do you think his career's over?
No. But I tell you what, nerve issues are crazy. And I say this from a little bit of experience. The lack of knowledge on nerves, just in the medical community, is stunning.
Now, why is that?
I just think it's such a kind of an undiscovered. I mean, why do they not know about ACLs 15 years ago, 20 years ago? It's just one of those things that haven't developed yet. And I don't think anybody can tell him when the nerve is going to be healthy, when it's going to be back. I mean, I would be stunned if everyone keeps saying this isn't something that's going to end his career. This isn't going to be something, but there's only really one person that knows that, and I don't even know if he knows that. I don't even know if Peyton knows that.
I'll tell you all a story right quick about Peyton. One year, Archie, the Oilers played the Saints in preseason. Archie was part of the Saints pregame radio broadcast, and he was at the Oilers practice. We were in San Antonio, I think. And he said, I was asking because he was with the Oilers late in his career. I asked him how his family was doing. He said, well, my oldest boy, Cooper, just caught 96 passes his junior year at Newman High School. And I said, wow. I said, he's going to get you a scholarship? Nah, he's just an average player. But the one that threw him the passes got a chance to be special. I said, who's that? He said, Peyton. I said, how old's Peyton? He said, well, he was in the 9th grade. I said, in the 9th grade playing with the varsity? He said, yeah. He said, I may be wrong, but I think he's got a chance to be special. I said, why? He said, well, ever since he was a kid, he'd crawl in my lap. Daddy, I want to watch film. And as he'd get older, Daddy, I want to watch film. I said, son, go get a girlfriend. I don't want to, Daddy. I want to watch film. And then he'd go in and watch film by himself. And he'd come home, turn on the film projector, want to watch film. Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Pop that in there. He would see things that I couldn't see as he got older. And this is before he ever went to college. He said, and I just thought, because the mental thing is so difficult, that he had a chance to be special. And he said, Cooper's going to the University of Texas. So I think Peyton will go wherever Cooper is. So I got to call David McWilliams in Texas, see if he'll give Cooper a scholarship and guarantee him Peyton will be there in 3 years so they can play together. So let me know how that goes. So I see Archie later. He says he called McWilliams, sent film of Cooper and Peyton. McWilliams says, I'll take your son Cooper, and you're pretty sure you're going to get me Peyton? Yes, I am, because he'll go wherever his brother went. Well, McWilliams gets fired. John Malkovich takes over. Archie calls him. Malkovich says, we don't do deals like that, and I'm not giving your son a scholarship. So I thought he may have killed the Longhorns, and I love telling this story for Longhorns like you.
That's awesome.
Blew the chance that Peyton Manning would have gone to Austin, but the Longhorns would have screwed him up anyway.
Oh, come on now.
Did Cooper go
It's
to
ironic.
Tennessee?
Cooper was going to Texas because his girlfriend was there. She's a year older. Turns out she broke up with him. He ended up going to Ole Miss, had a neck injury, that fusion surgery that ended his
And Archie
career.
went to Ole Miss.
Archie went because they thought no way anybody at Manning could ever go to Ole Miss. And, of course, Eli did too.
Right.
And
the ironic thing about that story, Chris Sims, who played at UT, initially committed to play at Tennessee, and the Longhorns came in and stole him away with Mac Brown.
his mom wanted him to go to Penn State. His daddy wanted him to go to Tennessee, and he wanted to go to Austin. Talk about a guy that's dropped out of sight. Has anybody heard Chris Sims'
Yeah, I
name
know he's in
mentioned
somebody's
in
camp.
2 years?
He was in somebody's camp this year,
Was he?
Yeah.
but I don't know if he. I guess
Ever since he
didn't
had
make it.
that kidney?
Ruptured
pancreas.
spleen. wasn't it?
Pancreas?
Ruptured spleen.
Yeah.
What a nice guy he was, though. The
Very
most
nice guy.
criticized quarterback in the history of our state.
He actually, he was one of my hosts when I went to my recruiting visit at Texas.
Was he?
At Texas.
Yep.
And how did that go?
Great.
Did it?
I met Kyle Shanahan there, actually.
Right.
They're best friends.
They were buddies, right?
They got
Yeah,
those matching tattoos.
I remember that article you
I
did.
wrote about that.
That was
Jim Rome picked it
man.
up.
Did they catch holy hell for that?
What is the tattoo
They
on?
each got tattoos on their ankles.
Along with those two, Bo Scaife and the little corner.
There's like 4 of them.
They had a
that
little
played
club called the Woodmen, and they all got these matching
on their
tattoos.
ankles.
And then you have to pull it up like a girl and show it. And I saw Chris Sims's, and when he was in Tampa,
it's pretty
and
bad.
they played the Texans, and I asked Kyle to show me his tattoo, and he did. So I wrote a column about it. Jim Rome picked it up, and I was guessing that they gave them some grief.
Hey, now that we're at the 2-minute warning, I want to remind you about.
Unbelievable run right there. He got hit at. They're going to get a first down. He got hit at 5 yards back and dragged about 4 Colts.
Like Eric Blunt is.
Watch this.
He's a workhorse.
Watch this. He's going to drag Tyler Brayton right here. Plus Anger misses him. Completely unathletic.
Looks like Allstott.
Watch him go for it. Boom.
It took 5 guys to bring him down. And that's going to help the Bucs put away this game. Hey, want to remind you real quickly about one of our sponsors, Billiard Factory, billiardfactory.com. You can get your own man cave in less time than it's going to take to finish up this game. Just go to billiardfactory.com. And be sure to check out our other sponsors as well. We want to mention Chicken Kitchen, who feeds us every week, and Verizon with our Twitter feed at Thebus TV.
Whoa.
Did he get the first down?
Nope.
It's close. They're going to have to get down, get the measuring
An inch.
an inch short.
Look at Blunt down there. He seems like a character too.
Hey, next week here real quickly on Not Your Ordinary Sports Show, YouTube.com, The Bus. Our guests include comedian Tommy Drake and former Special Forces Army Ranger Jim Slayton. Join us 7:30 next Monday. The Bears taking on the undefeated Detroit Lions. The undefeated Lions next Monday night here. YouTube.com, The Bus. Of course, during the week, check out our website. We'll be having videos as the week goes on. The Detroit Lions, John, as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy, is this team not just, a surprise team, but are they the real deal? Can they compete with the top teams in the NFC?
They can compete
the Packers,
with anybody right now.
Can they beat the Packers?
Wait till they play the Packers. Don't you wish that game was in prime time?
One's going to be on
Is
Thanksgiving Day.
Good.
Thanksgiving Day.
Now we say, thank goodness for the Lions on Thanksgiving, because that afternoon game's going to be terrible.
In the past, they came so close to losing that game, too.
They did.
They've been bad for so long.
The question I have with that team, though, is Matthew Stafford, who's been hurt Up until this year, he's
Each
been
of his
hurt every
first
year.
2 years, he was hurt.
And, I mean, he's shown all the ability in the world when he's healthy, but can he stay healthy this year?
Odds are against him, but you know what? We didn't think Matt Schaub would. Matt's been now answered the bell last 3 years.
Thanks to some outstanding protection on the offensive
Y'all better
line.
knock on wood. There you go. Matt's good to go.
The game is the Bears and Lions, a great battle between two historic franchises. The Bears, Mike Martz actually ran the ball, I want to say 40 times yesterday.
He should have. Matt Forte had over 200 yards when he's trying to get a new contract. That's great for him.
But I didn't know Mike Martz knew how to call that many running plays.
Maybe Lovie Smith told him to
Mike
do it.
Tice actually spliced into the headset and was impersonating him and calling out those plays.
That could have been it. It's inexplicable.
The Bears 2-2 on the season coming into that Monday night game. Got to bring this up real quickly. I didn't know if we'd have time, but I do want to bring it up. Did you hear about the Hank Williams Jr. intro from Monday Night Football tonight?
Yeah.
They yanked it from the show after Hank Williams, I guess, was quoted as
compared to Obama to Hitler.
Comparing Barack Obama to the fact that he played golf with John Boehner, and he compared it to be like Hitler playing golf
with Netanyahu,
with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli leader.
That just happened before the game tonight.
That was
today.
Today.
He said that today, and they yanked it.
Was it today or this weekend?
Today.
Or, yeah. What do you think about that?
I think
Is
you
the
can't.
NFL
I think no. I think it's ridiculous. You can't bring up Hitler and compare anything to Hitler.
Yeah.
You do. You don't have any common
But
sense.
should ESPN pull the intro? I mean, Hank Williams Jr. isn't an ESPN employee.
Well, it's NFL.
No, he's not an employee. No, he's not an employee. But
Of
ESPN,
the NFL.
But don't you associate Hank
Absolutely.
Williams with Monday Night Football? And if Monday Night Football is on the ESPN, it doesn't matter if it's on CBS, ABC, whatever it's on ESPN. Then that means if you didn't know any better, if you're watching at home, you'd be like, wow, Hank Williams works for ESPN.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your average person thinks that there's some kind of a deal, which there is certainly a deal there. You just got to what gets it pulled and what doesn't. I mean, if he got pulled over for drinking and driving, would they pull it? Probably not. Probably not.
Especially not Hank Williams Jr.
Correct.
But Hitler is one of those places you can't go. Right?
So what did they air in the beginning?
President?
What was the intro? I mean, did they slap something together? Some interns slapped together an intro today? I didn't see it.
It was a garage band, I think. No, and what happens next week? Do they keep Hank Williams Jr. off the show now?
He's done. They can't put him back on
They
there.
can't put him back on because of that comment.
You had a good recommendation.
Yeah, I said it'd be pretty funny if Kid Rock took over the reins.
Oh.
Kid's gone mainstream. Why not?
He'd be good for it, too.
He's got some good songs that fit, mainstream
Especially
America.
with Detroit playing
That's
next
true.
week, right?
He'd be great.
Who does the Sunday
go,
night?
Kid.
Is it Faith Hill?
Faith Hill, are you kidding me?
That is.
Oh my God! Nobody's allowed to talk in my house. It's like Faith Hill's about to get off her motorcycle. Everybody, shut up right now. That black one-piece outfit. What else do you need to know about it?
Yeah, you can have your Kid Rock. I'll take Faith Hill or somebody of that ilk on the Monday night games too.
Kid Rock's a good call for that, though.
He would be.
I mean, he's
hadn't
middle
thought about
America
that.
now.
We
I
should
mean,
start
Kid
a
Rock is
campaign.
mainstream guy.
Now, would he
so.
do country or rock? I
something.
still can't figure out what
does.
he's.
No, he's a country guy now.
You go right down
does
the middle.
country now.
You go right down
Country
the middle. He
What happened
appeals
to
to
the
everybody.
Hard rocking, the Kid Rock from.
He realized there's not as much
10
money
years
in there
ago.
as there is country now.
Last time he
Or
came
is
to
he just
town,
getting
Sheryl
older?
Crow was on the bill.
I
So
guarantee you,
forget it. He's
there's
thrown
more
in
money
his
in
heavy
country
metal
music
rock
than
and
there is
roll
rock
roots.
music.
Is he just getting older? Is that like the easy?
No, it's a kinder, gentler Kid Rock now.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's got the kid and everything. So
House
yeah.
full of antiques.
But he's cutting down on the swearing and the cussing and the concerts and stuff. I saw him on Mother's Day in New Orleans at Jazz Fest. He's like, okay, we're not going to swear.
Plus,
I mean,
he's got some good songs.
Last 30 seconds of the game, let's have a conversation that nobody ever thought we were going to have. At what week will the Colts be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs?
10th week.
Right?
mathematically out, man, I would say even maybe before that. Maybe even before the 10th
I'll
week.
say after week 8, because they'll be like 1 and 9, 2 and 8.
Say after their 9th game.
Okay, let me ask y'all a question. NFL, Madonna at halftime. They're so 1990s.
There's
what do y'all think?
well, here's the thing is, I mean, I think
it's terrible.
I think they wanted to ensure themselves there wasn't going to be any wardrobe malfunction.
But they have that in their contract now.
But
you got to pay a fortune.
don't some performers?
She's so over the hill.
I mean, they've been going that old route. They had
Not
Tom
with
Petty
Fergie.
here. But they tried to spice it up last year, right?
But Prince wasn't at the top of his game when he did the halftime show, and Prince nailed it. He killed it.
I think Madonna
I got
actually
no problem
works.
with McCarthy or any of them.
I
That
would
was
tune
boring.
in to watch
That was
Madonna.
boring.
Now you put her with somebody hipper and younger. I don't know. I mean, you
Well,
have
if
better
they have
idea.
her, they'll have her again. They'll have
Her
her
and
and Lady
JT.
Gaga. They'll have
Yeah,
her and Lady Gaga.
Gaga.
Give me Lady
It'll be-
Gaga over Madonna.
Do you think
any day.
you think they'll make out again?
Did they make out?
No, that was
Britney
That was-
Spears.
That was
Britney
Britney
Spears.
and Christina Aguilera.
There you go.
Christina Aguilera.
There it is. There it is.
Britney's already done it, but yeah, I think the biggest thing you can do right now is getting Madonna and Lady Gaga. That'd be as big as you can get.
Or just Lady Gaga.
And
Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber.
We're going to talk about Lady Gaga and Madonna making out a little bit more, but we'll see you next
hey,
Monday.
thanks for joining us on Not Your Ordinary Sports Show. Next Monday, 7:30 here.